I want to bring in Democratic Congressman André Carson of Indiana. He's the second Muslim to be elected to the U.S. Congress. Congressman, just a note, we are thinking about the Muslim community in the United States and around the world today. I want to ask you, you serve on the House Intelligence Committee. The president just said he does not believe white nationalism is a rising threat in the world. I know that there are statistics in the United States from the Anti-Defamation League that suggest that white nationalism is in fact rising when it comes to propaganda, when it comes to violence, when it comes to targeting schools. What do you know? You have better data than I do as a member of the House Intelligence Committee about the rise of white nationalism.
I'm deeply disappointed in the president's dismissal, Jake. You've seen these facts. I've seen these facts. The FBI has reaffirmed these facts. Even during my time at the Indiana Department of Homeland Security, white supremacy and white supremacist activity was still an issue, particularly in the ranks of law enforcement. And so it's interesting how when there are crimes or acts of violence committed by African Americans or by other minority groups, and especially Muslims, folks don't seek to contextualize these issues. No one traces back to their childhood when they didn't get a hug when they were 6 or 7, and they dismiss it to attribute it to this overall terroristic effort and I think that kind of dismissal, especially from the President of the United States, is hurtful.
So, Congressman, let's turn to the attack itself, because you're a member of the House Intelligence Committee. Have you been briefed on the attack in New Zealand? What new, if anything, can you tell us?
Well, I have been in contact with the Intelligence Committee and its leadership there, and I'm limited in terms of what I can say. I will say that the U.S., our intelligence agencies have been working very closely with New Zealand, which is a Five Eye partner, and our law enforcement and intel agencies have been sending folks there as we speak. We have a strong relationship with the New Zealand government. In fact, many of the police departments in New Zealand train regularly with our police agencies, police departments, federal and state and local as well. So the relationships are very strong. I do think we need to note that these kinds of acts require the global religious community to come together in a very real way. I'm so pleased when I hear folks like you, Jake, and other leaders, religious leaders specifically, condemn these acts of violence and issue a call for unity from imams, from pastors, from rabbis, from spiritual leaders across the religious spectrum to come together and push against these kinds of terrible acts.
It's horrific, but I did hear some nice anecdotes today about Jews and Christians going to mosques today in New York City and other places to express support. But it is also tragic because police in New Zealand, as you know, urged, quote, anyone who was thinking of going to a mosque anywhere in New Zealand today not to go, unquote. New York City, Washington, D.C., Houston have now also increased police presence at mosques there. Obviously, the freedom to worship and to celebrate whatever faith you have is one of the most cherished freedoms in this country. Do you think Americans need to be worried?
I think we should always be concerned, but I'm pleased to see the interfaith community coming together, encouraging parishioners and adherents from different religious groups to support their local masjid or mosque and to join in Jummah prayer service and pray alongside Muslims to show a kind of religious solidarity that is lacking during this very toxic climate.
This alleged attacker, in explaining, well, there's no explanation for it, but in whatever nonsense hate he wrote down on this document, he used words such as invaders. When talking about migrants, he talked about how they wanted to, quote, replace white people. These are words that we've heard used back here at home, and not just at Charlottesville, in Washington, D.C. Do you think that, that individuals, leaders, using that kind of language of otherizing people, demonizing them, making those who are not white Christians seem somehow a threat, do you think that that ends up having an impact on individuals like this horrific murderer in New Zealand?
I think it does, especially for those people who view their religious texts literally. I also think that religious and political leaders have a responsibility to watch the language that we use, and that kind of language, and our language has a great impact. And unfortunately, many extremist organizations have used the language of religious leaders and certainly political leaders to justify their hurtful ideologies and to justify potential attacks that they're planning as we speak, and to justify actions like the ones we've seen over the past 48 hours.
All right, Congressman André Carson, Democrat of Indiana, thank you so much for your time, sir. We appreciate it, and our thoughts are with you and the Muslim community. Let's